This isn't just motorcycle racing. This is the most extreme motorsport on the planet, period. The fastest riders on Earth racing around the globe, on machines that hit 220 miles an hour with no seatbelts, no power steering, and no second chances. These riders lean so low into corners, they scrape their knees, elbows, and sometimes even their shoulders on the ground at full speed, without falling off. They're superhuman. Just look at this. In MotoGP, riders have so much control, they can literally save a crash by using their elbows to keep the bike going. And if it feels like more and more people are talking about MotoGP, you're not wrong. This sport is growing fast. Bigger audiences, more drama, crazier bikes. If you've never watched it before, now's the time. So let's break it down. How does MotoGP work? How do these machines reach insane speeds? And how do riders push beyond human limits? This is MotoGP explained for rookies. MotoGP's actually been around for a long time, over 70 years, and it's produced some of the greatest racing in motorsport history. So how does it all work? Well, let me explain. The grid's made up of the 22 best riders on the planet. There's loads of people who want a seat in MotoGP, but the riders have to earn it. They'll start in the lower classes and work their way up. You've got Moto3, Moto2, and then finally MotoGP. It's the same structure as Formula 1. A lot of the riders in the lower classes don't actually ever make it to MotoGP, although some who are really good skip certain classes altogether, although that's quite rare. But it's not all just about the riders though. It's an all-out battle between some of the biggest motorcycle manufacturers in the world. For the past few years, there's been 5 of them: Ducati, Yamaha, Honda, Aprilia, and KTM. You might have also heard of some motorsport series that use the same bikes or cars for every rider. That's not the case here. Every single bike is different. And like F1, MotoGP goes all around the globe with over 20 different races. But every single event follows the same format, which might be a little bit different than what you've seen before. At the start of every weekend, there's the practice sessions. It gives the riders a chance to get used to everything. Lap times don't matter at all for these sessions. That comes next. The time practice sessions are nice and simple. Each rider's fastest lap gets recorded and put into a leaderboard, which helps set up the next session: qualifying. The first 10 riders in that leaderboard automatically go through to Q2. Everyone else goes into Q1, where they battle for the final 2 spots in Q2. The fastest 2 riders in Q1 move up, while the rest are placed 13th and below on the starting grid. Once qualifying's done, it's race time. There's 2 races per weekend, a sprint race and a main race. The sprint races happen first, usually on a Saturday. It's half the full main race distance with half the points. The main race happens on the Sunday. It's full race distance and full points. The higher up you finish, the more points you get. And the rider with the most points at the end of the whole season wins the championship. Nice and simple. Okay, so that's just the how. But what makes this sport so extreme? Well, it isn't just a sport. It's an all-out battle of speed, skill, and survival. There's almost no room for error. The riders aren't actually strapped to the bikes at all, so if something goes wrong, they're hitting the tarmac at insane speeds. Every move is rider versus rider, inches away from one another. And even though the bikes are pretty complex, and by the way, I'll explain just how complex they are in a few minutes, it's such a bare-bones sport. These riders manage to accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 2.6 seconds, with top speeds well over 220 miles an hour. In theory, they could actually go faster, but we don't know. MotoGP tracks aren't long enough to find out. And if you thought F1 cars were powerful, think again. These bikes do look quite big and bulky, but they only weigh 157 kilos, and they produce over 300 brake horsepower, which, if you're into mind-blowing statistics like I am, gives them an insane power-to-weight ratio. Power-to-weight ratio basically tells us how fast something can accelerate. A bigger number equals a faster machine. Let me quickly give you some references on different power-to-weight ratios. But before that, I quickly want to talk about something a little bit more personal. Just because you're moving fast doesn't mean you're actually going anywhere. I've had a bit of that recently, and it's made me take my mental health a lot more seriously. So I want to thank BetterHelp for being a paid partner of this video. I used to think therapy wasn't really for me. Not because I didn't believe in it, but because I'd never actually tried it. So I gave therapy a go. And honestly, it's one of the best things I've ever done. It hasn't magically fixed everything, but it's helped make sense of everything that's going on in my mind. Even though it's still hard some days, this is the first time I feel like I'm actually working towards something better. And I think the biggest thing I've learned is that you don't always need a solution, just space to talk about it with someone who actually gets it. And actually saying things out loud has taken a huge weight off of my shoulders, and I really wish I'd done it sooner. With BetterHelp, all you need to do is just answer a few questions and you'll get paired with a credentialed therapist in just a couple of days. And if it's not the right fit, you can change therapists at any time with no extra costs. They've got thousands of therapists, 7,000 plus reviews, and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot. And if you use my link betterhelp.com/AbsoluteDan, you'll get 10% off your first month. If you've been thinking about it, maybe now's the time. Okay, back to the video. Your normal everyday car produces around 128 brake horsepower per ton. A performance car like a BMW M4 makes 295 brake horsepower per ton. A supercar like a Lamborghini makes around 443 brake horsepower per ton. Now these are fast cars, don't get me wrong, but we're not even close yet. A Bugatti Chiron, one of the fastest accelerating cars on the planet, only makes 741 brake horsepower per ton. But that's just road cars. What about race cars? Well, a Le Mans prototype car like this one here makes 1,142 brake horsepower per ton. But we're still nowhere near yet. You might think an F1 car must be close. They make 1,315 brake horsepower per ton. Nope, a MotoGP bike makes a staggering 1,900 brake horsepower per ton, 15 times more than a normal road car. But these bikes aren't just fast in a straight line. They brake harder and corner better than any other motorcycle on the planet. How? That's where the engineering comes in. These aren't just modified road bikes like you can get in other racing series, and you can't walk into a dealership and buy one. They are 100% custom-built prototypes. The chassis, aerodynamics, the engine, it's all unique. And while other motorsports have a budget cap like Formula 1, MotoGP doesn't. So manufacturers spend millions and millions on research and development every single year. That's why they use some of the most advanced tech in motorsport. Take the brakes for example. They're not made of steel like you find on the road. Instead, they're made of carbon. Layers of carbon fiber are stacked, then baked at over 2,000 degrees Celsius to fuse into a rock-hard, heat-resistant disc, which lets riders pull 1.5 G under braking, stopping from over 200 miles an hour in just a few seconds. They also have seamless shift gearboxes which can change gears in milliseconds. And they've got aero so advanced they look like two-wheeled Formula 1 cars. The way these things corner though is even more insane. These bikes can lean over up to 65 degrees in some corners, and no other motorcycle in the world can do that without crashing. Just for reference, a normal road bike like this one here has a max lean angle of about 50 degrees. And unlike cars which have 4 massive tyres and a big contact patch, MotoGP bikes corner like this with a contact patch the size of a credit card on each tyre. But here's the thing, these bikes could go a lot faster through corners, and they could probably stop better as well. The reason they don't is to stop the engineers of MotoGP going a little bit mental. Take the tyres for example. Every single bike uses the same tyres supplied by Michelin, but they don't get to pick whatever they want. Michelin decides which tyres are available each weekend, so teams have to adapt to what they're given. All of the bikes also have to use the same ECU, or electronic control unit, meaning teams can't create custom traction control and clever engine mappings. And even though they each have their own individual aero styles, there's strict limits on how much they can add, and no F1 style DRS or active aeros allowed. The crazy part is though, every so often the organisers panic about the bikes being too fast, but the whole aim is to win. And to win, you need the fastest bike. So teams always find a way to work around the rule changes. In 2003, for example, they made the engine smaller. That slowed them down on the straights. But there weren't any limits on the electronics, so the engineers made the bike smarter. A lot smarter. They basically gave them a brain. They could adjust their settings lap by lap and even corner by corner as the race went on, which actually made them a lot faster than they were before. So, after a few years, the organisers then decided to make the bikes less clever, which made them slower. For a while. Then the engineers turned to aerodynamics, which, you guessed it, made them faster again. And they keep breaking lap records all of the time, but they don't do all of the work. In fact, they wouldn't do anything at all without the rider. I still can't believe these riders are actually human. Everything happens in milliseconds when you're going 220 miles an hour. Their heart rates can hit close to 200 beats a minute for 40 minutes straight, and they have to train like elite athletes because that's exactly what they are. They need to be able to throw themselves from one side of the bike to the other hundreds of times every single race. And it's so intense that they can lose 3 kilos in body weight through sweat in one race. And the core strength they need to be able to move 150 kilos worth of bike underneath them is immense. That's just the physical side of fitness. MotoGP is just as much a mental game as it is a physical one. Every single move they make on track has to be carefully planned. They're not just riding, they're reading the competition, looking for gaps and trying to push each other into a mistake. And even the smallest lapse in concentration can cause a major accident. It's been like this ever since MotoGP started. But the question is, can MotoGP stay this raw forever, or will it be forced to change? Safety is a huge part of any motorsport, and motorbike racing is especially dangerous. That's why in recent years there's been huge steps to make the sport safer. But like I mentioned earlier, MotoGP is faster than it's ever been before, and that makes it more dangerous. The last major rule change was way back in 2012, and there's going to be a big rule change in the next couple of years, which could impact MotoGP in a massive way. If you want to find out more about exactly what's changing, click on this video here. Thanks for watching, make sure to subscribe for more MotoGP content, and I'll see you in the next one.